So just a quick one, this video hasn't been fun to make. Unfortunately, during the process, the motherboard I was using decided to just stop working. It's actually sitting in the trash right now. I have ordered 2 motherboards, a second-hand one and a old new stock one, along with the PCI Express riser card, etc, etc. So this is part 1 of part 2, so let's just get into the video. On the 17th of November 2008, Intel released its first generation of Core i7 processors, which were based on the Nehalem microarchitecture. These i7 processors used the Intel LGA 1366 socket and were the first consumer-based desktop processors to have hyper-threaded cores, resulting in each core having 2 threads. Now, there were Xeon processors prior to these i7s that had multiple cores with hyper-threading, but as stated, these were the first consumer-based processors to offer this technology. On release, there were 3 processors: the i7-920, the 940, and the 965 Extreme Edition. This was the beginning of the Intel Core i series. Less than 12 months later, Intel released the next lineup of Core i7 and i5 series of processors. These processors were based on the Lynnfield architecture and used the new socket at the time being the LGA 1156 socket. There were only 3 Lynnfield based processors at the time of the first release, those CPUs being the Core i7-860, the i7-870 and the Intel Core i5-750. All 3 of these processors were released on the 8th of September 2009. The later S versions of these processors were only released later in 2010. Here is the full list of LGA 1156 socket-based Intel Core i processors with their release dates. I have not included the S versions of some of these processors like the 860S, which were basically the same processors but with a lower TDP, which resulted in lower base and turbo boost clocks. So all the Lynnfield based CPUs supported the following CPU instruction sets, that being MMX, SSE, SSE 2 and 3, triple SE 3, SSE 4.1 and 4.2. 4.2 is what is required for the latest Windows 11 CPU requirements, specifically 24H2. We also have EM64T and VT-X. So in theory, these CPUs do still support Windows 11, even for 24H2. With all of that out the way, let me introduce you to my Intel Core i7-860 and my Core i5-760. The i7 I managed to obtain by purchasing the second-hand Lenovo ThinkCentre, the ThinkCentre M90P model. And the i5 I obtained through a purchase on Bob's Shop, where someone was trying to get rid of a whole bunch of untested CPUs that were found in a storage unit. So as you can see, I've left the PC build in its original ThinkCentre case, but I've made some upgrades, so here are the specs. You'll notice that I am using an NVIDIA GTX 970. So I did try to install a RTX 3060 Ti, which was a fail, which I will explain later. I have a backup solution, which I will have to do a second video on. Before we jump into the benchmarks, even though Windows 11 seems to run fine on these CPUs, they are missing some of the more modern CPU instruction sets that just weren't available at the time, which resulted in me not being able to run certain games. So I couldn't run Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 2023 or Black Ops 6. I also couldn't run Cinebench 2024. So that's why those are missing from the benchmarks. So conclusion time. So firstly, Intel were the first to bring hyper-threading to multi-core consumer-based CPUs, so we've got to thank them for that. And for the time, these Core R series CPUs were pretty beefy, they were beasts. Have they aged well though? Somewhat. I mean, for a 15-year-old CPU, I think so. Would I recommend anyone acquiring one of them today? Definitely not. The lack of modern CPU instruction sets pretty much have these CPUs running on life support. I mean, Microsoft simply need to bring in some new feature into Windows 11 that needs something like AES or AVX, and you'll be stuck on Windows 11 24H2 or Windows 10. I mean, there's always things like Linux. I mean, if you have no other option and this is all you can afford or whatever it is, the reason being, then fine, they will run Windows 11. I mean, and I will say this though, like I was able to do software development on this PC, from like desktop application development to web development with like .NET Core Web API, Angular and so on. I mean, it does work. But the main question is, for how much longer? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Cheers everyone. Have a good one.